Welcome to the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapons series. I'm your host, Captain Matt, and today we're going to review the Sunchaser Vista 20LR pontoon. This is an entry-level pontoon by Sunchaser. The overall length is 20 feet 10 inches. The beam is 8 feet. Most pontoons that you'll find on the market are 8.5. There's a few of the manufacturers that make an entry level that are around 20, 18, 16 feet, and they drop down to the 8-foot beam. The max horsepower on this boat is a 90 horse. The dry weight, 1875. Fuel capacity, 20 gallons. The tube diameter is 23 inches, which is, again, on the smaller side. Typically, you're going to see a 25-inch tube, but again, with the 8-foot beam, the 23-inch tune is what you go with this. It's going to give you just a less buoyancy overall on the boat, which means it's not going to take rough water as well. It's not going to sit up out of the water with a lot of weight on the boat. And even if you go to their website, you see people jumping off the boat in their promotional videos, and you see it just sink down deep down into the water with two people jumping off. The tube gauge, 0.08 mils, which is pretty common in the industry, especially in the entry level. There's a few manufacturers that go a little bit thicker gauge, and I would definitely put the quality level in the value category. Let's take a look. This is brought to you by the U.S. Boat Expo, which is now live, usboatexpo.com. You can check out. It is an educational expo that we put on here at Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon that I think you're really going to get a lot of value of if you're a boat shopper. So let's take a look at Sunchaser in general. It was started in 1991. They're built in New Paris, Indiana, which is where a lot of pontoons are built. A lot of RVs are built in that same area with the aluminum production. So anything that's an aluminum boat, a lot of those are built in that area. They're owned by Smokercraft. Smokercraft also builds Starcraft, Smokercraft, Sylvan, Sunchaser, American Angler, and Star Weld, with Starcraft, Sylvan, and Sunchaser being their pontoon lines, and Sunchaser is the lower level of all three of those. I would say Sylvan and Starcraft are a step up for sure. They're privately held by the Schrock and Smoker family. Doug Smoker is currently the president, and Phil Smoker is the VP of sales. So very much a family-owned business, and their real focus is on that entry-level and mid-level buyer. They do have some more premium lines within each manufacturer, but their main focus is at 2019. They had their dealer report said they really wanted to focus on bringing new buyers into the marketplace, and I think that's exactly where this boat sits. They've got a 6-year limited lifetime warranty. So the lifetime warranty is on the structure of the boat. You have to look for all the details at their warranty, but they say it's the industry's best warranty. Well, there are other manufacturers that offer in the pontoon world 10-year bow to stern warranty. They've got the 6-year limited warranty on the carpet, the upholstery, and the vinyl on most models. So I don't know exactly where the cutoff is for them. But they do have lifetime on the hull and structure, which is the decking down is what's considered the hull and structure of the boat. 6 years on components, carpet, upholstery, electronics. So pretty much everything else transferable to the second owner, and it does include parts and labor. You'll have to get into the actual warranty to know, is it a tiered coverage? So in year number 1, they cover 100%. Year number 6, they cover only 50%. I'm not really sure which way they go. But again, just talk to your dealer. It's an important part of buying a new boat is how are they going to not only handle the warranty, what's their claims process, how strong is their relationship between the dealer and the manufacturer, and then are there any, I like to call them weasel clauses in the warranty that's going to allow them to get out. Because if they decline a warranty, you're going to be hard-pressed to get that through. It's why the dealer relationship is so important in my mind when you're looking at a new boat. So let's actually dive into this actual boat. So this is the motor mount. I'm showing you that thickness of the motor mount where they hang the motor and the welds. So you'll see It's a nice thickness for this piece, which is mounted on the transom of the boat, and this is where the motor hangs off of. These welds are not very impressive in my mind. These are a lot of them are hand welded, and you can definitely tell that weld is is not the smooth, consistent weld that you would look for. If you look another angle, this is on the inside of the motor mount, and again, it's not a smooth flow of that weld, which means in my experience, it's more likely to develop a crack or an issue over time. Now, the benefit of only having it rated to a 90 horsepower is it's not going to be under that much torque and pressure, but it is something that I like to look at on new boats is how smooth and well done are those welds. So this one up here is a little bit smoother, but this right here, you can see they've kind of gone back over, and it's not the same thickness all the way around. That's the type of things that you'll look for in the welds. Here is a picture of the full. You can still see kind of how choppy that weld is right there on the motor mount. And then a picture of the 23-inch diameter tunes. You can see how it's mounted, which is a kind of a standard bracket that they're going to use, but we'll see just a little bit. The picture's not that clear because, again, I'm just at a boat show inspecting these actual boats for sale, so these are real boats. But you can see that they've got a little finishing piece here and then their bracket here. So that finishing piece is going to go all the way down the length of this tube, and you're not actually going to be able to see what is important. You can see, again, this is that finishing piece right here that's welded onto the top of the tube. But what I want to show you is the brackets and how they're spaced apart. Now, these brackets are about 2, maybe 3 inches wide, and they're welded onto the top of the tune. There's one on this side, and there's one on the outside of the pontoon. Again, on the inside and on the outside of the pontoon, if you can see my cursor there. But then also look at the distance. They appear to be 24 inches on center, if I remember right. So that's not a lot of structural support when you're looking at a pontoon. It's why the capacity is rated for a max horsepower of only 90, a pretty small horsepower, because just structurally this boat is not going to stand up with that limited lifetime warranty. It's just not going to stand up to that construction. So those are some things you want to look at when you're inspecting a new or a used pontoonist. Check out those welds, check out how these are attached, and what the distance is. Some of the better manufacturers will use a full-length piece, but again, it's hard to tell, especially when you start putting that aluminum underskin on there. It's really hard to tell what you're dealing with, so you need to ask some questions. But this gives you an idea of why it's important. You can imagine that the closer these are together, the more rigid and strong that pontoon is. If it's a single piece all the way down, that's even more sturdy and more rigid. Okay? So let's take a look again at the transom. Just a basic ladder. It is angled down, which does make it a little bit easier to get up. It wasn't super wide. That extra width, I'm a bigger guy. Having that extra width gives you better leverage for pulling it up, pulling up on those on that ladder. And then again, you can see the fuel cell is right here in the well. So it's at a low part of the boat, which is great, but it is exposed. For me, that's more aesthetics than anything. You know, put the fuel fill in, fill it up. It's pretty easy access with this nice big back deck on it that you can access the back of the boat. But it is visible, which some people like that, some people don't. And then the ladder, back to the ladder, it's got this strap that allows you to grab it and pull it up. And you can see it is attached right there. You button it right there and it'll keep it affixed. When you want to let it down, you unbutton that. This will fall in the water, and then you can just grab that black strap there and pull it back up, which is kind of nice to have. A lot of times they get left in the water and get a little mossy and gross. But this is the cleat. All the cleats were the same. So a pretty nice stainless steel cleat. I don't really care for the fact that they've got a screw head here. Water's going to collect in that and start to rust that out over time. I'm not 100% that those are stainless steel screws. I'm going to assume that they are. It's really hard to tell at times if it's stainless or if it's aluminum or what the metal is. But it doesn't have that shine. But I'm going to assume that they've got a stainless steel screw in there. And then the finishing piece here, you can see it's mounted on the deck, and it's not mounted on this this finishing piece. And then when we look under the boat, you'll see through that they've got these 2 washers and the nut, and I think that did have the nylon locking washer in it. So if you can imagine, that nylon is going to keep that boat from wiggling loose over time. So it's well backplated. I really like to see cleats that are through multiple sections. So not only the plywood right here, but I like it when they mount it through this trim piece right here as well. It just gives it another section of stability, but it means that you have to use a stronger piece here, and you've got to make it a little bit wider, which again doesn't get you that value price. You're either going to pay for price for quality, or you get a little bit lower price. And there are some little things like this that that could be an issue down the line. For this boat, it's a 20-footer. If you're not tying it up at the dock all the time, it may not even be an issue at all. So just a couple things to think about. Now, we're looking underneath. You can see the channels. They use a hat channel to affix remember, we got the pontoon. We got that little bracket there, and then that affixed to this channel, this hat channel beam, which goes all the way across the full width of the boat. Almost the full 8 feet. You can see there's about an inch and a half there, and then a little bit from the rub rail. But you can see the spacing there, and they're affixed with a bolt and a nut and a washer on the backside. So that's the bottom construction. And again, you see that finishing plate that goes all the way down here so that you don't see that little bracket, that little bracket, that little bracket. That's what you would expect from a value pontoon builder. Now, taking a look at the layout of this boat, you've got the center walkthrough. I really like the center walkthrough. It gives you a lot of open space in the boat, that you board your gates right there in the center. They do have a gate here on the port side. There's no gate, being a 20-footer. That's what you would expect. No gate on the starboard side. And then the gate up in the bow. So a pretty standard layout. That 8-foot beam, it gets a little bit tight up in here with that fencing. And these seats aren't as wide as you'll see on some of the other models. When you sit, you can tell kind of how far from the edge your butt is. It's kind of what you want to look for. So that's the depth of the seat is a little bit less than what you find on some other models, which means that the depth or the width of your storage compartment under the seats is a little bit smaller. Again, it's a value pontoon. It's what I would expect. And overall, I like the layout. A nice simple helm. So you can see you've got your stereo controls. You've got your lights and your horn. You've got a tachometer and a speedometer and a trim gauge, which on a pontoon with the max horsepower of 90, hey, that's really all that you need. You don't need a whole lot more. If you want to mount some fish finder or electronics, they do have a nice little spot here on the helm that you can do that. And this was a trim or a tilt steering wheel. You can see that little piece right there. You can tilt that wheel up and back, and then it's rigged for a Mercury outboard. You can see that Mercury controls right there. So they, on this type of boat, if it's not equipped with an engine, they'll usually be able to put, whatever you want on it up to that max horsepower rating. Now we're going to take a look a little bit closer at the helm. You can see the switches there, and your tachometer, your speedometer, your fuel gauge, and then, your fuel gauge, and that's your trim gauge right there. So a decent looking helm. I thought it was pretty nice. Now let's take a look at the upholstery here. We'll see how well this works. So I like to look at the thickness and just kind of get a sense for the stitches, the quality of the stitching, the quality of the thread that they're using. Are they doing a single stitch or are they doing a double stitch? Again, on a value pontoon, that's about what I would expect on the stitching is a single stitch. It was a nice feeling upholstery. It was reasonably thick for a value model. Not as thick as you'll find on some, but overall a decent quality on the construction of the upholstery. Now, this is the Helm. Back to the Helm again. They've got this plastic door on the Helm to give you that underneath access. A lot of times it'll be on the side here, but I did like it, so it kind of limits what you can put in there. If it's on the side, sometimes you can slide a small cooler or a bag in. But I did like how they did this because it's a plastic door, and it's got this little cubby in it, which is going to be a great place to stick your owner's manual and your registration, maybe extra phones and just stuff that needs to stay up and out of the elements. I really did like that. And if you look at the hardware, this is one of those chrome covered plastic pieces. So it's fine. It's a little bit lighter, but just another way that they cut down on the expense on some of the hardware and keep that price down, which is what you want in a value pontoon. You don't want them to cut corners in the really important areas, but that was an area that I thought was reasonable. You can see the width of the bimini top. It's got those ridges in it to get a little bit extra sturdy stability to it in the construction process. And don't mind my dirty fingernail. That's kind of gross. I'm sorry about that. But this is just, I'm bringing you the content. I went to the boat show and shop for you, so I bring it to you. I apologize about that. But those are things that you want to look at, is how thick, how wide is the structure of that bimini top. Now, the next thing I like to look at when I'm inspecting a pontoon are the hinges. So you can see they've got this little flip-flop hinge. That is a decent size. So it was about 5 inches on the mounting. You can see a few metal scrapes and shavings, which on a value pontoon, those are just going to be there. You can go through and take all that stuff off. On some of the higher ends, typically that's going to not be there. They're going to drill things out, and they're not going to have those shavings. But that's a hinge that most people use on value and mid-level tunes. And then they've got this little cover, which covers that speaker. That's something that's great to see. It's going to mean that your speaker wires aren't going to get pulled off. It's just a little cheapy plastic piece, but it adds a lot of value in the pontoon that 6 months in, you don't throw some life jackets in there and they rip those wires out. And then you also have a little bit of a drain hole. And I like to see channels that are going to drain the water down to the low spot and keep your compartments as dry as possible. So this was a piece that I thought this was pretty cheap, is the way they do their gate closes. And it's on the outside of the pontoon, which is I thought was interesting. It's not on the inside, although if you look at the height of the fencing, the fencing wasn't super high, so it's pretty easy to access that if you're in the boat, even for kids. But just a little plastic piece that, in my experience, is that's probably going to break at some point into 3 or 4 or 5 years in, from when I see things like that. Going back to the hinges, if you take a look on the backrest, they've got another little storage compartment. That's a really handy storage compartment to keep. We'll throw a bag of towels in there because it keeps them pretty dry. But a pretty nice long hinge, because when you bring that up, there's going to be a lot of torque on it, and somebody might try to over pull it backwards, and that hinge can bend when that happens. But overall, a pretty decent hinge on that section. And again, you check just the little details like this stitching, kind of on the corners, some a little bit sloppy, but overall not too bad. But those are some places that you want to look on the pontoon that you're building or that you're buying, because it can be different from one to another. These are very handmade boats, all of them from top to bottom. They're handmade, and so you just have to look at those little details. The capacity of this one, 9 people, are 1,210 pounds, and that's going to be a whichever one comes first. So if you have 6 people that are 200 pounds, well, then you're at capacity. If you've got 9 people that are 100 pounds each, well, then you're at capacity. So that's how that works. And then you'll also have the horsepower rating. 90 horse is the max. So that's the rating on that one. So taking a look at the specs, again, this is a 2021 Sunchaser Vista 20 LR, the carbon color. We went through all the specs, and the boat show price on this was $28,995. Now, they didn't have, or I'm sorry, that's the retail price. The show special was $500 off. What that tells me is that these boats are pretty much priced to be market advertised price. So here's what it is, and there's not much discount at the show. You're only getting a $500 discount, and most dealers put their best foot forward on the pricing. If you want to make sure you get the best price possible, we've got our magic money saving method, which will ensure that you don't overpay for your boat and you get the best possible deal. You can get that at boatbuyersecretweapon.com/save. Grab the toolkit. This is a free toolkit. So just what we walked through, it's a 20-page toolkit that you can download and print out, take to boat shopping with you, take to the boat show, and you can do almost the exact same walkthrough that we did and start evaluating the boats. There's a little scorecard in there, a lot of great information in that toolkit, and it is free. And of course, YouTube has recommended some videos for you. We've got a lot more of these boat review videos coming through. We've got about 100 of them to get through that are recorded, and I just need to do the commentary on them. But I've inspected the boats, taken the pictures, and have my notes. I just need to put it in video format. So hit that subscribe button if you want that, and grab that toolkit and check out the U.S. Boat Expo if you are a boat shopper. There's a lot of great interviews, over 20 interviews with experts all over the industry that you're going to find very, very valuable. Thanks a lot, and we'll catch you on the next video. Remember, life truly is better on a boat.